take your coffee break with me. Come and take your coffee break with me. Come and take your coffee. Come and take your coffee. Come and take your coffee break with me.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Coffee Break with Candace. I'm David Marino, your co-host, and today we are talking about Testify. Testify is a monthly storytelling show that happens on the last Thursday of every month here in Austin. It's now in its 8th year, and we have a very special guest today. It is Ladi Loera, who is a producer and a storyteller with the show. So Ladi, tell me how this all came about and how you got involved with the show.
Well, Testify I got involved with about 5 years ago. I had a story that I wanted to tell. I was a member of Toastmasters before that, so I'd worked on stories. But you never really get to tell a story as a story. It's always kind of a selling point at Toastmasters. But at Testify, they wanted you to share your story. And Angela was the first person there. She was a producer there. She was the first person that contacted me and brought me on board. And I've told several stories there, and now they brought me on as a producer as well. And I'm just so excited to be able to take part in the whole thing. Because I think we all act like our stories belong to us. You know, they're our own embarrassment, our own things that we're ashamed of. But really, everyone wants the same thing. Everyone has the same story. We just want to belong. And that's what every story is about. So once you get past that, you're just talking to people about who they are, more than who you are.
Right. What's the format for the show like? Because I know that y'all do it the last Thursday of every month.
Yes.
And pre-pandemic, it was happening at Spider House. Yes. We always have to say pre-pandemic now. Yeah. It was at Spider House. And so since the pandemic started, you all have been doing it virtually, correct?
Yes, we do it virtually on Zoom.
Right.
Everyone does everything on Zoom. So we do it on Zoom now. And really, our format has not changed that much. We are not overly involved, but we make sure that we give storytellers the feedback and information they need in order to tell their best story. So if someone feels like they have something that they want to share but are nervous about it, we're a good place to deal with, because we have a first meeting where they meet with a producer, and then we have a second one where they actually talk to the producers and perform their story for us. And we have questions, we ask things about them, we ask them why they mentioned this and not this, or we ask questions about things that we think need to be brought out more. So we make it kind of easy for people to hear their story from someone else's ears. And that kind of helps people reformat or rebuild or retell in such a way that what they really want to say is getting said.
And ultimately, they do this in front of an audience, right?
Yeah,
so
well,
an audience can buy tickets to the shows
yes.
and watch. But I think that's the great part about this is there's prep before.
Yes.
Because not everybody's used to getting up and talking to people. But at the same time, once they get up there, it's like they're really sharing something very personal to them. But there's something that, the beauty in that, where people can relate to what they're saying a lot of times.
I think there's a difference, because when you're live in front of an audience, that can be really scary for a lot of people. I don't know if it's more or less scary in Zoom, because no matter what, you're kind of just talking to your computer.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that reads for other people. For me, Zoom has not been as scary as actual life.
Yeah.
So I think Zoom makes it a little bit easier. But if you stop and think about it, the fact that you're just talking out into the giant world, maybe that could be nerve-wracking to a few people.
But I want to get it straight. So there are producers, which are the storytellers, and those are your constant people that are always doing the storytelling.
We have producers, and they will be a host of each event. And we bring on about 5 different storytellers every month. And we have themes put on the website, so we have different themes for every month. And we ask people to go ahead and submit. And if they have a theme they think it fits, to submit for that theme. But sometimes we will look at a story and find that to us, it fits a different topic than what they thought. So we'll move them to a different month, because it feels like it's about a car crash, but it's not. It's about healing, or it's about something different that they see it then it's about something different to us than it is to them. So we'll move things around, and we always ask people, if you don't know where it fits, submit it anyway. We can find a home for it. We usually do. And those 5 storytellers, the producers work with. We each get assigned 1 or 2 storytellers every month, and we bring them on board, tell them what we need from them, a short bio, a picture of them, and we go over their story with them, ask if they have any questions. And then on the second meeting, that's where they actually tell their story to all the producers. We're all there, and they tell it like they're going to do it in front of the audience. And then we just talk about it from that point on.
For you, and I know you've done some storytelling, very personal, and you can share a little of that. How has this been helpful for you in your life, getting up and sharing your truth with people? And if you want to touch on, I watched a few of your clips, and there's some pretty, there's been some rough times, as everybody has in their life, but you really did share a very personal story to you, which I find is relevant to most people. Everybody's lost somebody, Absolutely. So do you want to talk about that a little?
Well, I think we act like we stand alone in the world. We're taught this. When actually, like I said before, our stories are everyone's story. It doesn't matter if you're a gay person, if you're a black person, the things we want in the world, which is to belong, to be heard, to be loved, that's universal. And every story we tell, whether it's about heartbreak, whether it's about finding somebody, whether it's about something bad that happened to you, it's all about the way we fit into the world. And that's one of the things that we love at Testify, because it's your story, it's your personal accounting. But once you've told a story, you'd be amazed how many people come up and tell you, that's my life. You told me exactly what happened to me. And you find out that your story, regardless of how personal you thought it was, it's simply a part of a bigger world.
My parents are nice people, but they did some weird stuff. I find that they were not stingy with love at all, but they're kind of unreliable. What was cute one day was annoying the next day. What got you hugged one day got you scolded the next day. So all I was trying to do was find a way to be loved, but it kept changing. So there was no way me just being myself was ever going to be good enough. But what cemented this in my head was a conversation I had with my mother. I don't know what I had done. I probably had not cleaned my room, which as an adult is still a problem. And she looked at me, at the little boy that I was, and said in my mother's most beautiful sing-song voice, "Well, if you don't do what your mother tells you, I guess your mother just won't love you anymore." Oh my God! Can you imagine saying that to your child and thinking, oh, this is good. This is healthy for him.
I also think what was great, and even watching you and some of the other people, is that in something sometimes so maybe tragic or what seems like a very sad event, what I appreciated about watching is that there's humor in that too when you find it, which is life. I mean, bad things happen, but in the middle of that, you'll find yourself laughing at something that it may from the outsider seem like, why are you laughing? But there is something funny about some of the worst times. You can find humor in anything. I think that's what kind of came out in your performance for me, or your storytelling.
And I think that's what makes a story a personal thing. Because if you're telling someone a story and they start laughing at something horrific, well, that's just mean. But if you start laughing at it, it lets people know that you have found something in there to grow from. My previous partner, Chris, who had cancer, he dealt with a lot of people that had a similar cancer to him, and they would get together and tell each other these horrible cancer jokes. They would laugh about their chemo. They would laugh about all this stuff, and I would be so upset. I would think, how can you joke about this? But they thought it was a riot, and it was, because for them, it was absolutely healing. And because of that, I could hear them tell jokes and laugh later, but it was never my joke to tell. It was always theirs. And I think when it's heartbreak, when you lose somebody, when you're going through loss, you find the things in there, because half of the stuff that happens to us is just crazy. And you can't realize it's crazy until you step back, until you've seen it, a year or 2 years later. Then you're like, I was out of my mind. But it's funny then. It's never funny in the moment. Like they say, comedy is got to have some time.
Right. Also, going into the pandemic, I would imagine that for all of you, the people that you host and yourselves as storytellers, did you find that to be particularly therapeutic at a time when, none of us really knew how to handle this, right? But to have that as a tool to be able to use to find maybe the humor or to vent even in your storytelling about things that were happening in the world and to yourself maybe.
Well, I think the pandemic has shown us a large portion of who we actually are as people, because I know so many people who were horrified and just did not know what to do with themselves. And I found the lack of people around me absolutely thrilling because I was like, see, this is not so bad. But I'm an artist and I also walk dogs. And the thing that I missed were the dogs. I really miss seeing dogs. So my partner actually made my neighbor loan me their dog for a day so I could take it out, because while people were, I could do without their people, I really wanted to have a dog.
I found the same thing, because I'm more of an introvert by nature. So when everybody else was like, oh, I can't believe I can't do, I was like, I miss going to concerts. I don't really miss the people. I miss going to a concert. I miss going to the record store. But it was never focused on. And that's when you do find things about yourself. I'm like, wow, am I just really I'm just used to being by myself. So that didn't bother me as much as not being able to go search for vinyl or whatever.
What's nice is you didn't have to tell people, oh, no, I don't want to come over tonight. No, we can't go. Now you could just say, oh, COVID, I'm stuck at home.
Yeah.
So, but being at home on the couch, watching a movie, having some popcorn, Steve, maybe a cat, we're good. We didn't need a whole lot of other things. But it's amazing the joy you get when you see a face. Like when you had a meeting with another storyteller, or when we had a meeting with the other producers, it's seeing the face of a friend, seeing someone that you laughed with. That is nice, and you can forget how nice it is until you have that face pop up on your screen.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I do like people. Not as much as other people, but I do like them enough to really miss them sometimes.
So if somebody wanted to be a storyteller or to be a part of Testify, how would they go about doing that? How can they get involved?
Testify, go to testifyatx.com, and we have a submission page. On the submission page, you put your name, how we can contact you, something about your story, and we have the themes that we have picked out for the rest of the year. But as I mentioned before, if you don't fit a theme, submit anyway, because every couple of years, I think we have something called a potluck, which is stories that we didn't fit anywhere, and we find a home for them. This is where they go. Or sometimes your story fits a different theme better than the one you're imagining. So you go through and fill all that. That comes to us. We'll read everything, because we read every single submission that comes through, and we'll contact you. We'll put you in the show.
For you, what's been, I'm sure there have been some rewarding parts for yourself being on stage, but some of the people that you've worked with maybe, has that been rewarding, kind of seeing the process come in, to fruition with them telling their story, or maybe what they went through to finally get to the point where they're telling it in front of an audience? For you, what's the perspective on that for you?
What's really nice is, especially if it's someone, I've had a couple of people that I've brought on board because I've been like, I know you got a story. You go to the submission phase and you put something, because I know you, and you've told me stories. And people find it hard to go ahead and share things. But when you give them permission, and when you ask them to please share this, you're giving them something that they don't get from other people. You're actually trying to pull something out of them that they really want to tell anyway, but we're afraid to. We're not raised to do that. So when you see them come from this idea of being afraid, and they share a story with you, and then they talk to the producers, and the producers say, why'd you do this? Or why haven't you mentioned this? And you all of a sudden see lights going off in their head of like, oh my God, I hadn't even considered that that was part of the story. Or you're right, this doesn't belong. That's a whole other story. You can see them looking at their lives differently, you know, because we have our lives the way we tell us how this is. You know, this is, I did this because of this, my parents did this, my dog, we have those stories that we tell ourselves all the time. But when you see them reflected on another person's face and they ask you questions that you've never been asked before, all of a sudden you have insight into yourself. You learn things about who you are and maybe about why you did some of the things you did. And it makes it so exciting.
That is very exciting.
It makes it so exciting.
When you talk about themes, what would be an example of that? When you said there's usually a theme each month, like what would be one of them that you can think of that y'all have done storytelling around?
We had a theme called The Calling. And we had stories based on a person's religious calling or a calling to do something or a literal call on the phone. And I told a story there about a call that I made way too many times.
I saw that. It was about somebody, it was your first partner, yeah.
I'm an idiot. I am that person who is, if I am in love and I am in love, that's it. Now, if I'm not in love, I'm not in love, and that's fine. But if I've met you and I like you, you're on the menu, and that's just it from that point on. And that was Chris.
I tried to do the math and plot out the perfect time to call, so I called him that day at 10. Hi, Chris, this is Ladi. I had a great time yesterday. It was so nice getting the chance to sit and talk to you and get to know more about you. I hope we can do this again sometime soon. I have lunch 12-ish. If you want to come by, we can have lunch together and visit. It would be great. I hung up the phone. That was a good call. I was proud of this call. I did not come across creepy. I did not come across desperate. I was nice. I was cordial. I was inviting. That call, I had nailed it. So you can only imagine how sad I was when he didn't call. And he didn't come back for lunch. Well, love requires action. And I am a man of action. So I called back at 12:30. Hey, Chris, this is Ladi. I called you earlier and you didn't call me back and you didn't drop by for lunch, and I was just calling to make sure you got the message and to let you know I'm here at lunch. If you feel like coming by, you can come on by. We can visit for a little bit. It would be great to see you again. Bye. That call sounded worse. I did feel like I sounded a little bit desperate during that call. In fact, I feel like I came across clingy and needy, and I'm not clingy and needy. Except at times I can be a little bit clingy and needy. And I know this about myself. And you know, it would be the worst thing if that's the way Chris remembers me from now on. And if he ever calls me because of that stupid message. So I called again 45 minutes later. Hey, Chris. This is Ladi. I know I've already called you thrice with this call. I just want to say, I know it seems kind of weird that I'm calling you a lot, but I'm not really a weirdo. And yes, I know that's probably something weirdo people say, but I'm here, and if you want to come by, I have lunch at the same time all the time. You can come by anytime. We'll visit. It'd be great. Call me. I hung up the phone, and I am disgusted with myself.
But the last call, I was so upset with myself because what kind of idiot calls someone 5 times in one day, the day after you've gone out? Well, I am that idiot. Fortunately for me, he was kind of an idiot too, and he thought that was hot. He thought that was like, oh, this is great. Someone who's as big a goofball as I am. So that was nice. But we have themes like that. We've had themes, one called Falling, which was, it could be falling in love. It could be falling down literally. It could be falling in any way that meets that definition to you. And I think our theme this month is assimilation. And we have several stories of what it's like to become a citizen, what it's like to, as a trans person, to learn to live a new life. So these are the themes that we pick. We go through at the beginning of the year and pick our themes. But submit a story. Tell us who you are. You belong here somewhere.
And the show's been going for 8 years now, right?
Yeah, Kate Caldwell started it. It was her brainchild. And it's been fantastic. She wanted to bring something to Austin because she saw the moth. She loved the moth. But she kind of made this her own thing because we tell longer stories, because she wanted to hear more about people. She always listened to the moth and those small stories. And my guess is she would hear what they had to say, but there's always something that goes unsaid. And even with our theme, there are things you just won't get to, but we get more of the tale, so we get more of you. And I think that was her goal to begin with, to learn as much about people as possible.
And it's really a great opportunity for people to, I would say it would be like a therapeutic thing, right, for a lot of people. Yeah. So even, I would say, and I'm going to ask you this, even if somebody's a little, I know right now it's still virtual because of the pandemic, but even if they do get, maybe they get nervous in front of people, I wouldn't necessarily discourage them from still doing it, right? Because sometimes it's the growth out of that. So have you seen that with people that...
You not only will you have growth out of it, just because of the fact that you're able to do something that you've not done before, a Testify audience specifically comes because they want to hear your story. They are just wonderful people. At the beginning of everything, Kate's always telling everyone, or the host, whoever's the host, turn off your phones, be quiet, listen. But the fact is, everyone comes with that mindset anyway. They come to hear, they come to learn, they come to see themselves in your story. So they are there for you. You will not only have the hand-holding that you'll get from the producers, which we're very good because we take care of our people. We want everyone to have as good a time and as safe a time as possible. But the audience holds you up too, because they want you to get as much out of this as they do.
Yeah, they're there to cheer you on.
Yes.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's a safe space to do that.
Yes.
So what do you see moving forward with Testify? Just continuing to do the themes, and especially eventually we'll get back to in person, right?
Yes, eventually. We don't know when. We're in talks about that. We're deciding with each other what feels right, but we will at some point get back to a live show, and it'll be run the same way as we do things now, except now there'll be people in front of you. On Zoom, what we do is we ask the people keep their mics on so that when you're telling a story, you hear an audience. You can hear claps, you can hear oohs and ahs, and it doesn't feel like you're just talking to your computer. It feels like there's other people out there actually listening. Well, when we get back to live, of course, you'll have faces staring at you, and I think we're all excited about that. I hope it happens soon. I don't know when it will happen, but there's nothing more electric than that feeling, I think, when you're in front of a live audience and people are giving you the benefit of the doubt, their attention, and their focus.
Yeah.
It makes whatever you say more important.
Well, Ladi, how did you come about being a storyteller? What's a little about your background?
I have always been fascinated by death. I was a morbid little child. I remember my father asking me once, because I used to draw little skulls and devils on homework and stuff like that, and he asked me once, when are you going to quit being so creepy? But now I started doing Day of the Dead art as an adult, and my previous partner Chris and I ran a business together, and my father said, I'm the one who, I talked you into doing this because you're proud of your race. It's La Raza, it's the brown people, this is what we do. And for me, Day of the Dead has always been fascinating because it's about the stories and memories we have of people who have passed on. And for me, it's people and pets, because half of what I do is about my dogs and cats who have moved on. But after Chris passed away, I stayed at home for about a year. I didn't do anything. And I didn't paint, I did not draw, I didn't talk to anything. And at some point I had read a book that said, in order for you to start healing, you have to say yes. And I was like, oh, I don't want to say yes. But I went to a Toastmasters meeting, and they said, you should join. Why don't you join? Why don't you join? I was like, oh, I have to say yes, because I told myself. So I ended up joining. They said, we're having a party this weekend. You should come to the, oh, I have to say yes to this too. So I started saying yes to a lot of things. And it was a way I had, because one of the first speeches that you have to do there is an icebreaker where you have to introduce yourself. And I introduced myself as a widower, someone who had lost someone and everything I had gone through. And Toastmasters was able to give me comfort in front of people. What it was not able to give me is the feeling of actually sharing myself. Because they're very good for what they do, but there is something very specific, which is how to give speeches and things like this. And that's not what I wanted. I didn't necessarily want to sell something. I wanted to share myself. And then I heard about Testify, and I applied for telling a story at Testify, and they emailed me and told me yes. And Angela Maldonado, who's the producer there who brought me on board, I got to meet her at the Spider House Cafe, which I don't think is there anymore. And it was so nice to see a face, and to see a face who wanted you to do good. So I practiced my story, and I have hundreds of them, because going through grief, going through anything like this, the way the world appeared to you first is now upended, and you're in an entirely different area. So for me, it changed not only my artwork, Day of the Dead artwork, which had always been kind of cute, and it became more realistic. My skulls became more realistic, all of this stuff, because death was not, it was not something I knew about. It was something I actually felt. It was something that I had witnessed, that I was a part of now. So it changed the way I saw that. And not only was I able to share those stories in my artwork, now I had stories that I wanted to tell, because there's just something an artwork, it can be a reproduction, it can be something that you get out, but it's not the same as when you're just speaking your truth to a group of people. Right. And that's what Testify gave me. It gave me the ability to go ahead and speak who I was in that moment, and to share it with people who were in the same place. Because generally, what people don't get about stories is a story is actually an oral movie. Because the moment you hear someone's story, you start witnessing it in your head. And it doesn't matter if it's a black person or if it's a gay person telling a story, you see yourself in that story. So you see yourself going through what they've gone through. So you are telling people a movie. And that's what I was doing. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted people to see where I was, see where I had been, and to know that when they're going to go through these things, because we all will, you know, everyone loses someone at some point, that it's not a story they're in alone. They've been other people who've already walked that path, and it's not the same path because it's all different for all of us, but you're not alone because there's someone else who at least understands that kind of loss.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Please come do it. You should come do a Testify show for us.
That's scary. that's really scary. But I think that would be fun. I would love to do that.
You've done so much. You've got stories. I know you do.
Yeah. You can ask Sarah, who's behind the camera, like I'm a big anxiety-ridden mess, so that would be funny in itself. Probably.
See, we love anxiety. Anxiety is great tales.
And for more information on Testify, please visit their website at testifyatx.com. We'll see you next time.